233921. There's a book talk with Betty Kwan Chin and Dr. Karen M. Price held on February 15th at 5 p.m. at the Cal Poly Humboldt Library in Arcata. That's on the second floor. The author, Dr. Karen M. Price, and activist Betty Kwan Chin will be speaking about the book release of The Great Bird Sings, The Extraordinary Life of Betty Kwan Chin. Additional information can be found at Cal Poly Humboldt Library website at theauthors.humboldt.edu. This event's free and open to everyone in the community. Check out the classical show tonight. Margaret's going to be in hosting a classical DJ, one of 5 classical musical lovers, every Thursday night, 8 to 10, right here on KMUD.
Every time you speak, that thing goes on.
And stay tuned. Now comes our 2nd District Supervisor Candidate Forum.
Did I just lose the audio?
All right, good evening and welcome to this live edition of the KMUD Local News with candidates for Humboldt County's 2nd Supervisorial District. I'm your host, Lauren Schmidt.
Co-host and timekeeper. Humboldt County's 2nd District encompasses Fortuna, Rio Dell, Phillipsville, Myers Flat, Miranda, Redway, Garberville, Bembo, Shelter Cove, Alder Point, Blocksburg, Graceland, Bridgeville, Carlotta, Densmore, Eddersburg, and Weot. Residents in those cities and unincorporated towns will choose their 2nd District Supervisor for the next 4 years from the following candidates, listed alphabetically: incumbent Michelle Bushnell, Gina McClendon, and Brian Roberts. The Board of Supervisors enacts legislation governing Humboldt County and determines overall policies for county departments, various special districts, and adopts the annual budget and approves county fixed salaries. The board also hears appeals of the Planning Commission decisions and considers general plan amendments. County supervisors in 2021 received between $107,000 to $118,000 between their yearly salary and benefits. Tonight, we are joined by incumbent Michelle Bushnell, who was elected to her first term in office in 2020. Hello, Supervisor Bushnell.
Hi, Lisa.
We are also joined by her 2 challengers, Gina McClendon, Hydesville resident and small business owner. Good evening, Gina.
Hi.
And Blocksburg resident and cannabis entrepreneur, Brian Roberts. Hello, Brian.
Good evening, Lisa.
Over the next hour, we'll be asking candidates the same series of questions with 2 minutes to respond and a 1-minute rebuttal. None of the candidates tonight have been given the questions in advance. Listeners can submit questions to our engineer by calling the studio at 707-923-3911. However, we will not be taking callers live on the air. We thank you for understanding. You can also submit your questions on our live social media feed on Facebook. Just search KMUD News. We begin tonight with introductions in reverse alphabetical order, giving the candidates 3 minutes to introduce themselves to the public and explain why they should secure your vote. That said, Brian Roberts, we begin with you. 3 minutes on the clock.
Thank you very much. Well, first, my qualification for this post right here in the job. My dad he started a firm called Norm Robertson Associates. He did a lot of recruiting. He was one of the largest public sector recruiters in the United States. Basically, he recruited top county officials and city officials that were non-elected. Police chiefs, CAOs, city managers, head of the water board, things like that. So I grew up in a background where I read staff reports my entire life. The first thing I was taught when dealing with government is keep track of everything. Know your paperwork, keep it in line. Government's big, government makes mistakes, protect yourself. So my first thing is when I talk about what is a supervisor, you're one of 5 people. You're a team player. What you're trying to do is collectively manage the departments. We have several departments. A supervisor is more of a manager who needs to get in touch with the different departments, the first thing I would do is I'd spend 2 or 3 days and basically assist each department head and find out what is going on in each department, learn how they're working, what their inefficiencies are, what's efficient about it, and try and find a way to actually make government more efficient so we could move on in life and not have to deal with government so much. There's 2 types of supervisors. You have a reactionary and a proactive. A reactionary supervisor is one that sits back and governs when the department heads hand you staff reports, and then you govern. A proactive supervisor is one that will actually look at state initiatives, federal initiatives, and proactively help Humboldt County. What I mean by that is the Encampment Resolution Fund was a $750 million state fund. Unfortunately, Humboldt didn't get any. Why didn't we get any? We don't have a grant writer. It's hard to collect state money without a grant writer. And right now, Humboldt County, we rely on each department to write their own grants. First thing I would do is try and get a grant writer for our county and go after state funding. Along with the state, we live very remote. It's hard to get fire insurance where we live. I was canceled when I applied for my cannabis permit, but since the fires in Paradise and some other ones, many people have been losing their fire insurance throughout the state of California. There's the California Fair Plan. As a supervisor, we need to bring out certain things that the public's not aware of so they can take advantage of these. A prisoner today in California costs $132,000 per year. I think if we start investing in the children's education, maybe that $132,000 won't have to be spent on someone sitting in a prison.
Oh, our apologies, Brian. That was 3 minutes time, but we have the next 2 hours to cover a lot of ground. I want to go to Gina McClendon. 3 minutes introduction.
Hi, everyone. I am Gina McClendon. I was raised out in Carlotta, rural Carlotta, out Highway 36 at the end of a dirt road. That is where I grew up. I went to Cuddyback Elementary School, followed by Fortuna High School. In my adult life, I live here in Hydesville with my husband, who is my business partner, and our 2 boys, who are 15 and 17 years old. For the last 22 or so years, I have been in business for myself with my husband. We've owned many businesses over the years. Currently, we own George's Glass, and that's probably the one that's the most well-known to many of you. We have a location in Fortuna. That's where our main office is. And then we have a satellite location in Redway that we have been servicing for almost 20 years now. So I've been down in the Southern Humboldt community with our business 1 day a week for the last couple decades. I'm known to my community to be a person that has integrity and a positive energy about me. I have a civilized leadership style that people have come to know me for. It's one of the reasons that people come to me when they're looking to fill positions on different boards or leadership opportunities. Currently, I serve on the Fortuna High School Board. I've been in school board leadership for the last 17 years in 2 different districts. I've had the opportunity to serve on the Fortuna Planning Commission, the County Headwaters Fund Board, and many other civic organizations in our community. I am running for supervisor because I have a unique skill set that I think that would be very effective in this role. And I can't wait to get to work for you guys if elected, putting my skills to use for the betterment of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina McClendon. And incumbent Supervisor Michelle Bushnell, 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I was born in Reading, but raised in Humboldt County. I'm a 4th generation Southern Humboldt resident. I was raised by my grandparents on a ranch in the Bembo area, the Kinsey Ranch. I went to Redway Elementary School and I graduated from South Fork High School. I had a first marriage that I have 3 children by, and during that time, I became a single mom and drove school bus and worked as a bartender and a waitress, trying to make ends meet. Current day, I am married to my husband, David, and we have a blended family of 6 children, 5 grandchildren, and another grandson on the way. We own several businesses in the southern Humboldt area, and we live in Blocksburg, same place as Brian does, very rural. And I became Humboldt County Supervisor in, I was elected in December of 20 and took office in January of 21. Prior to that, I was on the school board, I was chamber president, very involved in the southern Humboldt community, and really just loved the area that I grew up in, and thought I could add to and help my district and Humboldt County in general. I've learned a lot over the last, I've been in office now 3 years and a few months, and I do really work hard at my job. I've been available, I learn the issues, I really dig down for solutions. I have tons of integrity and a very moral background. My grandparents raised me that way. And, you know, I just really love the people that I work with and the county, and finding solutions for the people in the district and working with the county departments to make them better. And I look forward to serving another 4 years starting in 25. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. We're going to go to Lisa Music with a couple of questions.
Hello, candidates. We're going to start with Gina McClendon first here. As a candidate for the second district supervisor position in Humboldt County, how do you intend to manage the budget? Specifically, which services will you prioritize for reductions, and what measures will you propose to address the county's financial challenges? 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks for that question. We are absolutely at a time when things are rough. We're not jumping in at a great time. So whoever is elected your next District 2 supervisor is going to need to jump head first and roll up their sleeves and get to work. It is no secret that I prioritize safe, healthy communities. And so when looking at those tough decisions, I will always prioritize keeping our citizens safe and making sure that we have essential services for them: police, fire, EMS, roads, to get our first responders there. So I will prioritize that when we have to look at budget cuts. Budget cuts are never fun, and things do need to be cut out. That is part of the tough job of being a supervisor. Those tough decisions need to be made. In a perfect world, we would have enough money to fund everything, but that's just not the situation that we're in. And so that is what I will prioritize. The other thing that I think that it's important to recognize is that being a business owner for many, many, many years, I understand that one of our most expenses is our staff. And so while nobody ever wants to have somebody lose a job, I think that we need to really take a look closely and understand that sometimes that is going to need to happen for the betterment of the overall organization. And that is what a supervisor has to do. They have to make the tough choices to protect the organization and protect the county, so we can still maintain essential services. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brian Roberts, as a candidate for the second district supervisor position in Humboldt County, how do you intend to manage the budget? Specifically, which services will you prioritize for reductions, and what measures will you propose to address the county's financial challenges? 2 minutes. Hold on 1 second, Brian. You're muted. Let me start your time over. Unmute on your call-in line.
Sorry, I forgot about that one on this.
Okay.
Can you hear
There
me
you
now?
go. 2 minutes. Yep.
Sorry about that. Back when I said the first thing is through my father's background and me growing up with someone that's very into the political scene in county and city governments, the first thing I did was I called an ex-CAO and asked him questions and basically wanted to know what was the biggest problem counties had, other than Humboldt County, obviously. And his first thing was budget. And he said, when it comes to a budget, the biggest burden is CalPERS, your pension plans. And that's with retired people. We try to attract people into government because everybody wants to go into private business. So how do you get people to come work for government? Nobody wants to. We give them great pension plans. The best way to
Shouldn't be.
store up the budget would be to increase revenue. Find out why is the economy not growing? We have cannabis, and cannabis is a $2.2 billion industry in California. So why is Humboldt cannabis suffering so bad? That's the main question. But first and foremost, I don't like to cut anything. I would never put new taxes. I heard Rex mention that there was a potential road tax. No new taxes. We're taxed enough. Staff efficiency. We need to go into each department, like I said, sit for 2 or 3 days, get the department head coffee, be their assistant, and find out what's inefficient and what's efficient. Modernization. If you can modernize something, I had 12 employees once. I cut it down to 7, and I did double my sales once computers came in line in the 90s. So modernization is the most important. Maybe we do have extra staff. We could redivert them to a different position within that department. But the key is pension plans kill budgets. When you're stuck with having to pay $17 million a year just for pension plans of old employees, you have very little to operate with. Most of our budget is already earmarked prior to spending it. I think the McCann Bridge that project is 2018 started. It shouldn't finish until 2025. So,
Oh, sorry about that, Brian. We ran out of time there.
Michelle Bushnell, as a candidate for the 2nd District Supervisor position in Humboldt County, how do you intend to manage the budget? Specifically, which services will you prioritize for reductions, and what measures will you propose to address the county's financial challenges? 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question. So it's not a secret that the county is in an $18.4 million structural deficit. This came from we had raises that came, and then we had a reduction in cannabis excise tax with a $14 million outstanding amount owed. We as a board had to make choices, and we chose to not cut services and to not lay off people when this came about, knowing that our revenues were down. Currently, the programs that so to look at the structural deficit and to address that, we offered voluntary retirements. We offered furloughs, not mandatory, but furloughs. People could take 1 day a week. We also we authorized a hiring freeze, and nothing but essential positions could be hired. And those had to come through the board. And so no new positions. We also request that departments hold a 10% vacancy rate and not rehire past that 10% so that we could address the deficit. Essential services, roads, police, DHHS, those services we have to have in our county. In order to have those services, you have to have people, and people means money. So while we do have a structural deficit because we don't have income, our income to spending is not where it should be right now. We are working on reducing that deficit and keeping essential services. What taxpayers want and deserve is those services. And so to address that, as I said, we're working on the reduction of employees, but not losing those services from essential services departments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rebuttal, you have 1 minute, Gina McClendon.
Well, I can appreciate the fact that the county as a board is working towards those goals. Unfortunately, we're in an $18 million deficit. And so I think that the delayed decisions that have been made this is where the rubber hits the road. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. And so I think that, like I said, in a perfect world, we'd be able to keep everybody and everything, but that's just not the case. And when you are short on money, you cut the stuff that you don't need. And so I am prepared to get in there and make those tough decisions and then hope that we can get revenues up and rehire. But again, I will if elected, protect those essential services, keeping our communities safe and protected. Thank you.
Thank you. And Brian Roberts, rebuttal.
Hi, and thank you. Yes, my first thing would be, well, yes, we do need to look at past things like the Humboldt County Visitors Bureau. We put it on a 6-month hold. They pay $50,000 a year in rent. That costs us money. Those type of things need to be addressed immediately. But the main thing I think is revenue. How do we gain revenue? Where do we bring income back into Humboldt County? The economy in the world isn't that bad. Our cannabis is awful right now. Part of the problem was we spent a lot of money getting our cost recovery to get through the planning department. I had a bill one day of 7 hours from one employee. That was $1,045. One employee does not work 7 hours on one application in a day. So when I don't have $1,000 because I had to pay for that employee for 7 hours in one day, I can't go trademark a name.
Oh, our apologies, Brian. We're over time there. I don't know if you noticed, but there is a little window in Lisa's bubble that it's counting down. And I believe Supervisor Bushnell will go to you with the 1-minute rebuttal.
Thank you. So I'm not only prepared to make those difficult decisions, I've been making them for 3 years. And while there is the structural deficit that we have now, it wasn't born from my supervisorial term. It's been over a series of events that have happened. I joined the budget ad hoc, so that I could dig into departments and really figure out where we could make savings. While I don't want to have to lose jobs or lay people off. That's always very difficult. It is necessary. I'm prepared to do that if needed. I will always keep essential services, roads, and the sheriff's department for the rural areas, and just in Humboldt County in general, are what I am prepared to keep funded. We also are trying to seek grant monies to make up for like road improvements, and I will continue to advocate for that grant for the.
Oh, our apologies there. Michelle Bushnell, we're actually going to stay with you for this next question. In your budget balancing strategy, how do you factor in county taxes? And do you believe Humboldt residents are currently overtaxed or undertaxed? And 2 minutes.
Thanks. So when you put together a budget, you get anticipated revenues coming in, and those are county taxes, whether they're property taxes, anticipated sales tax. And then you set your budget at what your income is going to be. And so when you have projections, quarterly projections, and through those projections, you're able to secure your budget. Lots of times you're working on past numbers, so you're able to look in the past and say, oh, this isn't going to work so well with sales tax. Sales tax is not something you can predict, so it's harder. But property taxes are something that you can predict, and so you can set your budget. When doing that, and you recognize, that you have X amount of money, you set a budget for X amount, and then you start whittling away with what isn't going to work. And you do that by working with your departments to say, you gave us a budget of $4 million. We don't have $4 million to get to you. Please see where you can reduce, and we'll come back to the table. Do I think that people are overtaxed? I think that people are stressed, and that taxes are always something. I think that, I feel triple and double tax just like everybody else. Sales tax, property tax, all of that seems like a triple tax, income tax. And so do I think people are overtaxed? I think that, yes, it doesn't work well, and that it's not proportionate, but I do think it's necessary. I know it's necessary to run a county. It's expensive to run a county, and you have to fund that. And how you do that is through taxation.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. And we're going to go to Brian Roberts. Same question in your budget balancing strategy. How do you factor in county taxes? And do you believe Humboldt residents are currently overtaxed or undertaxed? 2 minutes.
Yes, again, thank you for the question. Humboldt County taxes, Measure Z is our spending on sales tax. So obviously when we're seeing that we're not getting enough Measure Z taxes, that means we don't have enough spending power. Each person is hurting. It's simple as that. Property taxes. Oh yes, we're way overtaxed. I bought my property and in over 10 years, each year it goes up the minimum that it's allowed to. I think it's 2% or something. Long story short is Garberville is in the top 10 for foreclosures. So how are property values raising when two of our communities in Southern Humboldt are in the top 10 of foreclosures? So I went into the assessor's office, I think it was on November 15th, because you have until November, I think 24th it was, or 30th to fill out the form for the 23, 24, 24, 25 year. Long story short is it's been 3 months. I haven't heard a word back from them. So again, I drove 2 hours, filled out a form, sat with an employee, and that could have been done online. And that employee could have taken my application, worked it out and sent me something back. So inefficiency is what's killing us. And yeah, we're definitely overtaxed. Do I want to see another tax for roads? No. Do we need road improvement? Every day of the year. Our roads are awful, simple as that. So are we taxed too much on other things? Income and state tax and federal tax has nothing to do with the county. So it's really, what are our taxes that the county picks at us? Measure S taxes, they're awful. The $1, $2, and $3, it's the best in the state. I agree that you can't get anything better. But for outdoor farmers that are subject to fire, wind, rain, all these different elements, you might not have a crop, but you still owe that tax at the end of the year. So regardless of how well you did, you could be owing $12,000, $1,000 a month in an extra tax, plus your property tax. It's just.
Oh, sorry, Brian, Robert. Gina McClendon, same question in your budget balancing strategy. How do you factor in county taxes? And do you believe Humboldt residents are currently overtaxed or undertaxed? 2 minutes.
Thank you. So to answer the first portion of the question, I think that when you are budgeting, you always need to be conservative, use conservative numbers. Like we have seen most recently with the Measure S tax that we stopped for 2 years. They stopped the tax, but they still had the fees that were associated with them, or the costs, excuse me, associated with them. So I think that there's some work to be done on more conservative numbers so we don't run into these situations. Are we overtaxed? Nobody's going to win an election saying that we're not overtaxed, right? But I think that what it boils down to is being reasonable. And I don't think that you can ever add more taxes to a community that already has taxes, but we're not utilizing our money well. Another road tax, while I understand our roads are in horrific condition, we need a lot of money to fix those roads. District 2 has some of the most amount of roads in the county. But do we need a road tax? Unfortunately, we probably just needs to be better stewards of our money throughout the years. And unlike Supervisor Bushnell, who just voted Tuesday against the $1 million from Measure Z for roads, I think we need to do a better job with our money so we're not having to overtax our residents.
Okay. Thank you, Gina McClendon. And Supervisor Michelle Bushnell, 1 minute rebuttal.
Thanks. I actually made the motion for the $1 million for the road tax. And the reason I voted against that, because I was the last one to vote, so I knew it was going to pass. And I voted against it because we did not support fire, an essential service for the 2nd district. And I said 100% support the $1 million for the roads, in fact, made the motion. So while I did vote against it, I voted against it because essential services in the 2nd district, 18 fire districts, we have to have that money for fire too. They respond often before the sheriffs get there. What it means to the rural communities is so important. We conservatively budget all the time through the county, and that's why we come back at mid-year. So we say, reduce your budgets and we'll see what you have at mid-year, because we're always conservative, and that's how we move forward. So yeah, that's my rebuttal.
Thank you. Brian Roberts, 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. When it comes to taxes, I don't know if we'll get into this, but Measure S taxes, I think we need to support our legacy farmer who was basically what brought the Humboldt County international fame. Most of the legacy farmers are 10,000 square feet or under. I'm suggesting when it comes up next time, we do a zero tax for all sun-grown outdoor legacy farmers, 10,000 square feet and below. I think when you go to outdoor and you're above 10,000 square feet, typically you probably weren't a pre-existing, you might have been a new cultivation. So I think we can add a 50-cent level to that. When it comes to mixed light, $1.50 and indoor $2. It's reducing each of them a little, and I don't think they should be at full capacity right away. We should probably do a 20% and look each year and gradually do it. Cannabis will bring money to our county.
Sorry, Brian Roberts. And Gina McClendon, 1 minute rebuttal on the tax question.
I couldn't agree more with Supervisor Bushnell that fire departments, especially in our district, being that we have so many of them, are extremely important. However, I also understand that if we can't get fire trucks down the road to get to residents, that's a big problem. I think our system is, the way we're doing it now, I think is broken. Anytime you have to pit firemen or fire departments, firewomen, against sheriffs, against roads, and you have to choose in between, that's a bad situation. I saw that you made the motion. I watched the meeting. I just thought it was a very interesting response. I've never seen that done before.
Okay, thank you to all of the candidates. It is the bottom of the hour. We're going to throw it back to our engineer in the studio. We'll be back in just a minute.
And it's 5:31 in the evening, and you are listening to KMUD's second supervisorial debate, hosted by our news director, Lauren Schmidt, and Lisa Music. Donors to KMUD include Vocality Community Credit Union, growing communities one voice at a time. Vocality now has 2 branches to better serve our community, located in downtown Garberville and on Perkins Street in the Pear Tree Center in Ukiah. For more information about financial counseling and banking services available, the website is vocalitycreditunion.org.
Thank you so much to our engineer, Patricia Tinkler. I do want to remind our listeners that if you have a question for candidates and the incumbent for the second supervisorial district, you can call Patricia at 707-923-3911. She will pass them to us here live in Studio B, or you can go on social media, the KMUD News Facebook page, where we are live streaming this event and we are keeping track of our socials. We'll continue with this forum, and I believe Lisa Music has another question.
Thank you, Lauren. Brian Roberts, we'll start with you on this one. The Eel River Valley is often considered separate from Southern Humboldt, although they are both within the second district. What are the needs of Fortuna and what are the needs of Garberville as you understand them? And how do you plan to address and serve both communities? 2 minutes.
Very good question. Well, cities within the county, like Fortuna and Rio Dell, they have their own police, they have their own sales tax, they have their own fire, all of that. As a county supervisor in their district, you're basically there as a liaison. You help them out in situations, but they really govern themselves. It's the towns like Garberville, Redway, and there's so many more, I'm not going to list them all, but those are the ones that have no representation in Eureka. They're the ones that you fight for to try and get their roads done, to try and get improvement districts, to redo. There's a lot of things. When it comes to building stuff, we could do redevelopment zones. We could do tax incentives. There's a lot of different things. But Southern Humboldt is very unique to Fortuna and Rio Dell. Rio Dell, both of those, Rio Dell and Fortuna, have money. I'm not saying they're rich places, but they have their own income tax. They have their own system set up. So for a supervisor, you have to coordinate with the mayor, you have to coordinate with the city council over there, and basically work together. But your main focus really is the unincorporated areas of District 2. That's what the people need most representation from. And that's where I mainly focus myself. But I would never give away Fortuna and Rio Dell. Those are two beautiful cities within our district.
Thank you. And we're going to turn to you, Gina McClendon. The Eel River Valley is often considered separate from Southern Humboldt, although they are both within the 2nd District. What are the needs of Fortuna and what are the needs of Garberville as you understand them? And how do you plan to address and serve both communities? 2 minutes.
Sure. I think it's very reasonable to say that both of those two different areas of District 2 have vastly different needs. The Fortuna Rio Dell area, I think that as a supervisor, what they need is a partner. They need a partner, they need a voice, they need a conduit, if you will, to the county. And that's what I can offer for them, is I can be their partner in helping them collaborate together with the county to bring whatever they need and support services to their cities that they're not already covering. So that's pretty simple. And I think that right now the city of Fortuna and city of Rio Dell are both doing very good jobs of taking care of that. I went to the city breakfast this morning in the city of Fortuna, and things are really looking great in the city of Fortuna right now. For Southern Humboldt, you're right. It's a very different atmosphere. Luckily, I have been doing business down in Garberville, like I said, for the last 22 years through our glass company, George's Glass. We have a shop up in the Meadows Business Park, and I've met a lot of folks from Garberville Redway. We understand there's a different culture down there. There's different needs. They have a lot of challenges down there right now, from the cannabis industry to the homelessness to the mental health issues to government overreach on the private property issues. There's a lot of things that are going the wrong way in Redway, Garberville right now. So what I would do is I would reach out, I would be present, I would connect, and I would find out what those communities need from me, and I would make it happen. I am known for taking action, and that's what I plan to do. But I would let the residents of Southern Humboldt lead the way. And
Sorry, Gina McClendon.
And same question, Michelle Bushnell, 2 minutes.
Can you read the question?
Sure. I'm going to pause your timer. The Eel River Valley is often considered separate from Southern Humboldt, although they are both within the 2nd District. What are the needs of Fortuna and what are the needs of Garberville as you understand them? And how do you plan to address and serve both communities? 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, I have been serving both communities, Fortuna, Rio Dell, and Southern Humboldt. I'm present in all 3 of those areas and listen to the community and the district constituents on what their needs are. Fortuna, they need just help, and as as a conduit to either Senator McGuire or Huffman, they rely on that voice, that extra voice. I also am able to, because of my position as a supervisor, really have that conversation with Fortuna city staff, their manager, and Rio Dell's manager, when things come up in the county and say, hey, this is coming forward, what do you think? Also, during natural disasters, they are very dependent on the state and the county for help. And while they are both very self-sufficient, they need that help and the supervisor to be present to be able to help coordinate those things. Prime example was the earthquake, the floods, the snowstorms. While they do govern themselves, they're not absent of needing that state help and the county's help when it comes to organizing those things and being present for the constituents and hearing what they have to say. Southern Humboldt, we're going through transition in Southern Humboldt. Was a lot of cannabis farms and cannabis money with legalization, and it is transitioning. I'm trying to work on a business improvement district to try to help the Southern Humboldt residents, also to get infrastructure built up, so make the town a little bit more desirable. The Garberville Street project is something we've been working on. It was way before my time, but trying to get funding for that. Recognizing that the houseless situation, it needs help, and us being the farthest removed from the city seat, we don't have a lot of services in Southern Humboldt. So bringing those services to Southern Humboldt is so important, and listening to the constituents.
Thank you. And we're going to go to Brian Roberts for a 1-minute rebuttal. Brian, you're muted.
Sorry, it's a little two-way system here, trying to make it happen. Natural disasters, yes. The Office of Emergency Services by the Humboldt County, they are a great resource for all of us to keep in track and watch. And when a natural disaster happens, one, I'm proud of Humboldt County because in Southern Humboldt, almost everyone's a survivalist. The way we rally together for, fires, for snowstorms, all that is what brings Southern Humboldt as a community together. I think for Fortuna and Rio Dell, when it comes to an earthquake and natural disasters, you're right. Being a proactive supervisor, the best thing you could do for them is find out information from the state that you could forward to them, hand them stuff that says, hey, this is, relief funds. These are grants that are available. And that's basically what you do with the two big cities is you're their liaison to the state and to the federal government to get things done. As far as Southern Humboldt and a natural disaster, we look to Richard, everyone that's in.
Sorry about that, Brian. Your 1 minute was up, and we're going to turn to Gina McClendon. 1 minute.
Thanks. I was just going to finish my last thought that I ran out of time last time. I would listen to the folks of Southern Humboldt and let them know which way they want to be led. Their economy needs help down there. Just fixing the cannabis issue is not a fix-all. The business improvement district is not the fix-all. But I would listen and I would find out which direction they want to head. They would decide, and then I would be their support and lead them there. The other thing that I think it's important not to forget is that our district also encompasses Dinsmore and Bridgeville and all these other rural communities as well. So I think that's important. But as much as people are concerned about a supervisor from Fortuna representing District 2, I think that if we can have a supervisor that lives in Blocksburg representing District 2, a supervisor from Fortuna would be fine.
Thank you, Gina. And Michelle Bushnell, 1 minute.
Thank you. I also am going to finish my thought. So while the Business Improvement District and figuring out some solutions for income in the Southern Humboldt area, which I think Southern Humboldt as Dinsmore, Bridgeville, those areas are all very rural and, have 1 or 2 stores and so I kind of think of them as together. I visit those areas and am very proactive in those areas. It is not a fix-all. There's not one solution. When I was a young girl growing up, there was 1 or 2 industries that really supported this area. Now we have to be really think about how we can diversify and support our area. Listening to the people is something I've always done and really been proactive in what they think will help their community and work towards that in a future. We need people to come to Southern Humboldt. We need to catch them before they leave and really revitalize our town. And I'm working towards that currently.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. I'm going to pass it over to Lauren Schmidt.
Thank you so much. And Gina McClendon, you'll lead us off with this next question. We're going to do a couple listener submitted questions. We had someone who wanted to know where the candidates stand on incorporating McKinleyville. Recognizing it's not in your district, what do you think are the pros and cons for the county when a city such as McKinleyville becomes incorporated? And Gina McClendon, 2 minutes.
On the McKinleyville incorporation, I always think it's great when communities are coming together and feeling empowered to make improvements. And if the citizens of McKinleyville think that's the best answer, I think it's fantastic. What I do think is important, though, is that we make sure we get all the information, gather all the data to make sure that is feasible, because in letting McKinleyville incorporate, of course, it's going to be excellent for the local control for the citizens of McKinleyville, but we have to make sure it's sustainable and it's financially feasible. So I think that while I think that it's appropriate to venture down that lane and take a look to see if it's something that actually can work, I don't think you can make a decision before you have all the information. And I think that that's right now, we just need to be in the waiting phase to get the information back on the reports, the feasibility reports, and then make a decision from there. And it's going to be a decision that's going to take everybody's discussion to make sure that whatever we decide is the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And I realized we actually didn't have a timer on that one, so I apologize to all the candidates. We now go to Michelle Bushnell. Same question, although not in your district. Where do you stand on incorporating McKinleyville, and what would be the pros and the cons for the county?
Sure. Well, the con for the county is that if you incorporate McKinleyville, it takes away from the county budget. As far as McKinleyville, it's the largest unincorporated area in Humboldt County. And back when cities used to incorporate, I can't even remember what year, they would absorb or, value the full amount of taxation. And that isn't currently how it works. With new laws, you don't currently get to keep everything all tax base. And so it would be a struggle for McKinleyville. I think to incorporate have to have their own police, their own planning department, their own city hall, their own city staff. Along with that comes, stirs and purrs, which is a very big reason why the county gets in trouble. I do think it's really important to listen to the community and to hear what they have to say. The feasibility study is very important, whether it can sustain itself. Currently, the incorporated areas such as Rio Dell and Fortuna, while they're self-sufficient, they struggle financially every single day to make ends meet. Rio Dell, while it is smaller than McKinleyville, Fortuna is about the same size. And it's still every day trying to figure out where funds are going to come from. And if the economy fluctuates financially, so does your income for those incorporated areas. So I think with the studies and, figuring out what the value is there, that the realization may be that it's not financially feasible, but maybe some other kind of a district could be, not a fully incorporated district.
Thank you. And Brian Roberts, will go to you. Same question, although not in your second district. Where do you stand on the town of McKinleyville incorporating, and what would be the pros or cons for the county? 2 minutes.
Thank you for the question again. First, the United States is a constitutional republic. And what that means is you have a federal government, state government. States get to decide their own ways. When it comes to local government inside a state, you've got counties, then cities. So if a city or an unincorporated part of a county wants to incorporate into a city, that's nobody's decision but theirs. Can they financially afford it? You have to ask the people that live there. I don't look into their main finances, so I don't know how well to do McKinleyville is. The cons for the county, yeah, we lose a lot of tax revenue. You never want to lose an unincorporated area into a city but at the same time, we save money. We don't have to go there and be the sheriff's department. The sheriff doesn't have to patrol the area. So there's pros and cons. But again, we live in a constitutional republic. You get to choose your own governing way of life within your community. And it goes from unincorporated areas and counties to cities. And then from there, you go to the state. And then from the state, we go to federal government. So it's really up to them. Whether they have the money or not, and whether they're going to struggle, I don't know. I'm not part of McKinleyville, but there's lots of added, fees that come along with being incorporated and having your own city. Michelle said it perfectly. You got fire, you got ambulance, you got to do school, planning department. There's tons of stuff. So it really has to do with McKinleyville. If McKinleyville wants to go on their own, I give them 2 thumbs up and say good luck. And we miss out a little tax dollars for our county, but that's not going to kill the county. So I wish McKinleyville the best, and they decide what they do.
Thank you, Brian Roberts and Gina McClendon, 1 minute rebuttal.
I'll stand by my original answer that basically the feasibility report needs to be completed so they can really analyze all the information. I think anything short of that and having all the information would be a poor decision on everybody's part. But I do think it's fair to listen. If the residents of McKinleyville want to take a look and go down that road, let's look and see if it makes sense and then go from there. Anytime you're not listening to hear your community, I don't think that's ever a good situation. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michelle Bushnell, 1 minute.
Oh, thank you. I stand by what I said. I support McKinleyville if they can feasibly financially support their community. I don't want them to get in a position that they struggle, though. I want that to be realized. And you know, they're also, they have the roads and all of that we have. And so I think it's great that they want to be self-sufficient. I don't want them to struggle. It's difficult when you run out of funding and you don't know how to help your community. And so I think it's so important that they know all the pros and cons and that they weigh their decision and that they bring that to the county, you know, and say, this is how we can do this. And we've figured it out. The feasibility study is really what will determine that and whether they can financially bear that burden.
Brian Roberts, would you like to utilize your 1 minute? Oh, you're muted.
Okay. Yeah, again, it comes to when governing, I believe McKinleyville just gets to determine their own path. It'd be nice to keep them in the county, but if they want to go and be an incorporated city, there's lots of benefits for a city. Look at Fortuna and Rio Dell. You have you get to make your own laws if you want cannabis in there. Fortuna banned it, Rio Dell allowed it. So McKinleyville gets to make its own choice. And then there's nothing wrong with it. Self-governing at a local level is the best thing you could possibly do. Do they have the money? I don't know.
Thank you, Brian Roberts. And we're going to start off this next question with Supervisor Michelle Bushnell. What are your plans, if reelected, to address the seemingly neglectful infrastructure issues occurring with the power grid, limitations, and communication failures with Frontier? 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I currently, I raised the siren when it came to PG&E about 18 months ago with the power grid. I continue to have meetings with them, meet with the CPUC, and try to navigate a way that we can get more power into the community. It really is dependent on PG&E upgrading their systems, which they have committed to and are working towards. It takes money. It's always about money. But also, you know, continue those talks with Rio Dell and Fortuna, and that is what your community deserves. They provide power, and if they can't provide power, they need to figure out how we can. We have a solution coming to the Petrolia area, some Tesla battery packs that they're going to try. Those are going to backfill some lines and be able to come into Bryceland to free up some lines. They have a solution coming to Fortuna with an upgrade. They say it'll be business as normal by the end of 2024, and I'm hopeful for that. Rio Dell, the same thing, 2024 for that upgrade. Garberville has an upgrade coming from Bridgeville to Alder Point that will give some upgrades, allow for the new hospital. Frontier is a new thing that's happening, not new, but newly recognized that they are struggling. Not a lot of people use landlines, but in our area that's so rural, cell service isn't abundant. And so we really need to recognize for emergencies and for people that choose to live rurally, we need to have those options available to them. Meeting with the CPUC, alerting Senator McGuire. Those are things I've done. I had a conversation with Senator McGuire's staff 3 days ago about the AT&T issue. And so just recognizing and being the squeaky wheel and helping move the target forward with them is really important.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. And Brian Roberts, we're going to go over to you for this. What are your plans, if elected, to address the seemingly neglectful infrastructure issues occurring with the power grid limitations with PG&E and communication failures with Frontier? 2 minutes. You're muted again, Brian.
Sorry, working a double phone here. The power grid situation is really an unfortunate situation for Humboldt County. We're in the Lost Coast. We're tucked away in the corner of Northern California, and it's not easy to get power here. PG&E has had issues back in the 70s with the power plant with leaking of some toxic fumes that I read back in the day on Kim Kemp and a few other places. And the biggest issue is state mandates that are coming up. In 2045, we're supposed to be at 0 emissions in each city and county. I don't know how that's possible for Humboldt County. I can't put electric stove in my place. There's no possible way I could ever meet 0 emissions come 2045 living in a rural part of Humboldt County. In 2030 in California, there's no new gasoline cars. They all have to be electric. That's on the new ones. We're going to buy used ones. But where are we going to get this power for all these cars, for electric stoves? It's going to be some tough times ahead when it comes to power. We have the wind thing coming. Is that power going to be dedicated to Humboldt County, or are they going to ship it down south like they do with all our water? So when we talk about state mandates and how to deal with it, that's a huge concern moving forward in Humboldt County. When you talk about landlines, Frontier, AT&T, again, we have a big issue. We're in the Lost Coast. Communication here is very difficult. Cell phones barely work in a lot of these remote areas. When I get on Alder Point, I have an hour and 20-minute drive with no cell phone. That's why you wave to everyone on Alder Point, because you might break down. You need to say hi and come pick me up or get me a call. That's where we live in this remote area, and we love it. No one's complaining, and I would never go anywhere. But when it comes to dealing with the state and getting power here, the first thing I would say is when we had power issues 2 years ago, everyone kept calling me up going, are you okay? Are you okay up there? And I'm like, I live off the grid. I have my own power. I don't worry about the power.
Sorry, Brian, your 1 minute was, or your 2 minutes were up. Gina McClendon, we're going to switch over to you. What are your plans, if elected, to address the seemingly neglectful infrastructure issues occurring with the power grid limitations with PG&E and communication failures with Frontier? 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, we live in an absolutely beautiful rural area, and so there definitely are some drawbacks to that, and obviously issues with PG&E and utilities are one of them. And so, of course, as a supervisor, I would definitely collaborate and work together and bring awareness and use my position to try to build those relationships. Business is built on relationships. And you have to be diplomatic in those conversations and making those connections, not only here locally, but at the state level. And so I definitely think that that's the first thing I would do is stay on it and make sure that they understand that we need that. It's a matter of a lot of times in our rural areas, having no cell service could be the matter of life and death in these really rural areas. So it's important to be an advocate. But furthermore, I think it's important that when we run into these issues, we need to be innovative. And I think that that's what's lacking right now on the Board of Supervisors. We need to implement innovative strategies to solve some of these really unique problems. Is there another way we can get power down there? Can we utilize solar grids, the mini grids? Can we do something else? Can we open the door to some new opportunities? Can we form new partnerships with some of these agencies that are already in our community to solve these problems? There are problems, and we do need to get them solved. And so I would take any and every approach possible to get it solved one way or another.
Thank you, Gina. Moving to rebuttals. Michelle Bushnell, 1 minute.
Thank you. One thing that you don't see on the Board of Supervisors until there's a solid plan is an action coming forward. And so when the PG&E issue came to light, not only having the meetings with PG&E Planning Department, another supervisor, which was an ad hoc, we also met with people, agencies that could possibly work on like a mini grid down in Southern Humboldt. We did a feasibility study. We wanted to see if, with partnering with PG&E, if we could do solar in Southern Humboldt and outside of the rural areas. Because while we can get power to Southern Humboldt, Garberville proper, the power, putting the power out into the rural areas on the lines is one of the issues. So we've been working for 18 months on innovative and different solutions to try to free up the grid from Red Crest to beyond the Humboldt County border down in Mendocino. We've been working really hard to do that. I've been part of that since day one.
Sorry, Michelle, your 1 minute was up. We're going to switch over to Brian. Go ahead and unmute Brian. Brian Roberts, 1 minute rebuttal.
Yes, first thing we need to remember is the phone lines and the power grid are public utilities. Simple as that. They are owned by the public. So the first thing you do is you call up people in Sacramento, get on the horn, find out who you can talk to and make things happen. But they are public utilities. So they can't abandon Humboldt County. They can't leave all land. They can't abandon landlines. We're going to have landlines. They can't abandon the power grid. So the question is, who do we talk to in Sacramento? And let's work as a team and get that. So Southern Humboldt and Humboldt County has power. Can't grow economically without power.
Thank you, Brian Roberts. We're going to flip this over to Gina McClendon for your 1 minute rebuttal.
Sure. And when we fire up the telephone and call the people down in Sacramento, we also need to kindly remind them that there are rural areas in California that don't look like San Francisco and Los Angeles. And these blanket policies are not working for our rural areas because, as Brian did mention, we don't even have the power up here to conduct everyday business, build new homes. There is no way we are going to be able to approach or reach some of these lofty goals that have been set for us at the state level. So I definitely think that conversation needs to be had as well at the state level. These one size all policies are not working for us in the rural areas, and Sacramento needs to know.
Thank you, Gina.
All right, that concludes the first hour of our second district supervisorial candidate forum. I want to thank Supervisor Bushnell, Gina McClendon, Brian Roberts for joining us. I'm Lauren Schmidt. I'm joined by Lisa Music. We're going to take a quick break, throw it over to our wonderful engineer, Patricia Tinkler. We'll be back in about 5 minutes.
And it is 6:02, and you are listening to Redwood Community Radio, KMUD Garberville, 91.1 FM, KMUE Eureka, 88.1 FM, KLAI Laytonville, 90.3 FM,
All over me by accident. I thought it was
FM
Will.
translator, K258 BQ Shelter Cove, 99.5, on the web at kmud.org. As your family gets back to routines, it's important to consider checkups and recommended vaccines to help protect your health now and in the future. You can talk to your primary care provider to find out what you can do to keep up your protection against vaccine preventable diseases like measles and whooping cough. More information at HumboldtVaxFacts.com, by phone at 707-268-2108, or you can contact your primary care provider. This message has been brought to you by the Humboldt County Department of Health and Human Services. Support for KMUD comes from Norcal Mechanical LLC, offering all electric, all climate heat pump systems from Mitsubishi Electric for your homes and businesses. With over 50 years of experience serving Southern Humboldt, Norcal Mechanical can advise on how to switch from old fossil burning systems to energy efficient heating and cooling. Tax credits are currently available. More info at norcalmechanical.com or 707-223-2100.
Boo, go lie down right now. I was like, oh my
Would you
God,
like to
babe, how much
listen to
power
Sonic
do you?
Ventures in the wee hours
Or
on
what kind of power
Wednesday,
you still have?
or Transmissions from the Center of the Earth on Thursday after
You're at
midnight?
7%.
Have you ever dreamed
Mhm.
of seeing them perform live? Your dreams are about to come true. Saturday, January 27th, Feral Selector and Narlock will be performing with Joe E., Papa Squat, and DJ Pounds, also known as Sohum Syndicate, at the historic Eagle House in Old Town Eureka. Tickets in advance at Eventbrite or at the door. A portion of the door to benefit KMUD. Support our local musicians and KMUD too.
Hey, y'all, if you can believe it, we've only gone through 4 questions. So if it's okay with everyone, we're gonna try to move the answers to 1 minute and keep 1 minute rebuttals. So 1 minute answers, 1 minute rebuttals, if that sounds okay with everyone.
Thanks, Lauren. That's okay. I didn't hear the first part though. What did you say? We have a lot of questions.
We've only gotten through 4 so far.
Oh,
Donors
okay.
to KMUD.
Thanks.
So I'm like, it's time
Sorry
is
about
going
that.
by.
Donors to KMUD include Whitethorn Construction, offering building and gardening supplies, including local hardwood products and water
You gotta
tanks.
open the heat up again.
Located on the Shelter Cove Road, a half-mile past the Whitethorn Junction, Whitethorn Construction is open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. They can be reached at 707-986-7416.
Babe, will you open up the fire a little more heat? There's still anything in there? Ooh, we still gotta talk about Measure A and all of that.
Brian, you're not muted. I didn't know if you knew.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that, Michelle.
No problem.
All right, and welcome back to this live edition of the KMUD Local News with candidates for Humboldt County's 2nd Supervisorial District. I'm your host, Lauren Schmidt.
And I'm Lisa Music.
We're currently joined by incumbent Michelle Bushnell and her 2 challengers, Gina McClendon and Brian Roberts. We just spent the last hour asking candidates a series of questions. They were given 2 minutes to respond. We are going to continue with that format. However, we are going to reduce that time to 1 minute, 1 minute response and 1 minute rebuttal, so we can get through as many questions as possible. We have another question, and Brian Roberts, we'll start with you for this 1 minute. This was submitted by our listenership. Small businesses are the heart of the second district. What are your concrete plans to help these businesses thrive, promote tourism, and how does your approach differ from the others? 1 minute.
I missed part of that question. I'm sorry, but tourism. Tourism is a huge, huge thing for Humboldt County. Ecotourism, cannabis tourism, and our natural surroundings of rivers, lakes, beaches, and trails. How to do tourism, how to increase it. I looked at the thing and I saw Visit Mendocino County. They had 60,000 members on that webpage. Humboldt County doesn't have a Visit Humboldt County webpage on Facebook. There's lots of ways to increase tourism. Festivals. We have some of the greatest ranchers in America having cook-offs, having all these types of Southern Humboldt's the community is so great that we need to create these festivals, art things. I see all the time posts of people with bakery goods, tortillas. Everyone makes homemade pies, jams. We need to get the agriculture department in here, get us cottage industry permits, and start getting little festivals.
Oh, our apologies, Brian Roberts. The 1 minute does go quick, but remember, you'll have the opportunity for the 1 minute rebuttal as well. Gina McClendon, we go to you. Same question. Small businesses are the heart of the second district. What are your concrete plans to help these businesses thrive, promote tourism, and how does your approach differ from the others? 1 minute.
Thank you. Absolutely. Businesses are the heart of our second district, and I think that it's pretty simple. How I would help these businesses thrive as a supervisor is I would start by getting back to the basics. We need roads that can accept new growth. We need power. We need housing to house our employees. We need all of these things. And I think that that is the most important thing that we lose sight of, is that we need to make sure we have a good foundation that is ready to accept growth. We need to clean up our own house, if you will, to make sure we're in a position to accept growth. That's how we help the small businesses in our area. We need clean communities. We need our streets not to be covered in garbage and homeless people. We need.
Oh, our apologies, Gina McClendon. Michelle Bushnell, we're going to go to you. Small businesses are the heart of the district. What are your concrete plans to help them thrive, promote tourism, and how does your approach differ from the others running? 1 minute.
Shop Local is a campaign that has been spreading throughout Humboldt County. And while we do need to clean up our curb appeal, we need to address our roads. We also need to get people into our communities to stay. I've always thought that Humboldt County, we have so much to offer. Start in one community, Southern Humboldt and in Trinidad. We need to promote that. We can do that through economic development. It's hard with government to help private sector, private businesses, but you can do that through grants and incentives, and that's really important. I brought an item about less than a year ago, to try to figure out if we could get a grant writer for not for the county, but for people and businesses in our district and private sectors, water companies and fire departments. I think that's really important. There's a lot of money out there. We just have to see it and promote local and really promote each other throughout Humboldt County.
Thank you, Michelle. Brian Roberts, 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. Tourism. Yeah, when I drive down the 101 past Humboldt, you see $100,000 RVs coming our way all the time. We need to capture that and find out how to make their money, not just getting them to a campsite, but putting on festivals, putting on music venues. That's the number one. Now, how do you get people to come here and tell friends they had a great time? Curb appeal, homeless issues, other things like that. But the main thing is, and this is what I've done most of my life, is you bring people together through festivals and events. As a county supervisor, that's not my job. But what I could do is I could help you get permits easier without having to go, like my neighbor, they are the original Reggae on the River spot. I just looked at their thing. I think they spent $12,000 getting approved so they could do Reggae River again. And it's moved down farther south. It's not on their property, to be honest with you. So these high fees of getting permits to get into, so we can do festivals is expensive. We need to find a way to stream.
Our apologies, Brian Roberts. Gina McClendon, 1 minute.
Thanks. Just real quickly, I do agree that we do need to get people up in our area. But I think it's really hard to promote people coming to our areas when our streets aren't pretty and we have things that people don't want to see when they're on vacation. So I think that's important. I definitely agree with you that we do need to promote. We need to promote each other. We need to work together as a team because there is power in numbers. But I find it really hard to believe that we can be effectively promoting tourism when we most recently took no action on the Humboldt County Visitors Bureau a contract. We just tabled that. And even though it's not working, we tabled it. Nobody made a decision. So I find that those are the things that we need to step up and take action on.
Thank you. Michelle Bushnell, 1 minute.
So marketing our county is so important, and finding the right marketing tool to do that. Mendocino currently uses their TOT funds and uses that for a marketing campaign. If you're going to terminate a contract for somebody, it is not the simplest thing as saying it's not working, let's just terminate. You really have to investigate why it's not working, bring solutions to the table, say, could we fund you up or fund you down, whatever that decision can be. And while, yes, marketing our county is number one, we are so diverse. We have Garberville, we have the Lost Coast, we have Ferndale, we have Fortuna, we have the Redwoods, we have cannabis. Selling all of that to the community, to people beyond our community is what's really going to drive people here. We miss 3 million cars in Humboldt County every day because they drive on through. They go to Eureka. That's not actually the prettiest place in Humboldt. We need to market better, and I'm working on that.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. And Lisa Music, we'll go to you with the question.
Jumping in there. All right, we're going to start with Gina McClendon for this one. Housing and homelessness are issues we see around us all the time. What are your ideas for addressing these problems in our community? And how do you think your approach is different from your competitors? 1 minute.
Oh, sure. 1 minute. That's a lot. That's a big problem to handle in 1 minute. I will say this. I will say it's not a quick fix. It's going to take all hands on deck approach. We need to make sure we are connecting our existing services to the folks that need it. Just putting them in housing is not solving that problem. Where I differ on my approach is just going to be my ability to get things done and to see them through and to take action. I would love to see the Southern Humboldt community identify an area that they would like for their safe parking program, being that they just renewed that for another couple years to see if that's going to work. So I just think that we need to make sure we are using what we are already spending our money on to making sure that those are the most effective programs that we can make them at this time. But it is a definite all hands on deck approach.
Thank you, Gina. We're going to switch over to Michelle Bushnell for that question. Same question. Housing and homelessness are issues we see around us all the time. What are the ideas for your addressing these problems in our community? And how do you think your approach is different from your competitors? 1 minute.
Thank you. So housing in general, streamlining the permitting process for housing and recognizing development areas is super important. Identifying shovel-ready areas so that you can go in and say, this area is available for this kind of housing. That could really help things. We get caught up in the permitting process, and it really does prevent people from moving forward. Homelessness is not something that will be ever solved, but it can be worked on. In Southern Humboldt specifically, where there are no services, farthest removed from services, bringing services into the area. The safe parking, it can work, but it's not monitored. People don't want unmonitored areas. We really need to identify through community help, like Southern Housing Solutions for All, a place to be, who's going to run that, who's going to be supervising that, and get people there so they can get the help they need.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. Brian Roberts, Same question. Housing and homelessness are issues we see around us all the time. What are your ideas for addressing these problems in our community? And how do you think your approach is different than your competitors? 1 minute.
Safe Park, great idea, not used once, extended 2 years. Tiny home village, community kitchen, community bathrooms, great idea. That has to go to the planning department and talk to John about that if it's possible. Rent control in some areas. Being a landlord is a private business, so to force someone on rent control is a very tricky situation, but in some areas of the county, we might need to look into rent control so we can keep people locally to be able to work locally. But zoning is the main thing, and that goes to John at building and planning. And that's really what we're going to have to do to help out the homeless, or to help with housing. As for the homeless, I say increase the Humboldt County Drug Task Force. Go after hard drugs. Stop spending all this money going after cannabis, but go after these hard drugs. They ruin our communities more than anything. Cannabis is great, but I saw...
Sorry, Brian Roberts.
We're going to go to Gina McClendon for rebuttals. Lauren, can you give us 1 minute on the clock?
Yes, absolutely.
Sure. I love all those ideas that have been thrown out. I'm just not seeing a lot of action. And I think that that is where the community is concerned. We're not seeing action. We're not seeing processes being streamlined. We're not seeing people identifying areas where we can build multi-unit houses. We are not seeing incentives for builders. We are just seeing roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. So I think it's something where we want to see tangibles. We want to see action. We want to see action, words backed up with action.
Thank you, Gina McClendon and Supervisor Michelle Bushnell. 1 minute rebuttal.
So I'm going to say that I keep turning my camera off because my puppy is outside and needed to come in. So I apologize. So actions are what you see with the safe parking. That was something that came from the planning department at the supervisor's suggestion. It takes the community, it takes everyone to help with this process. You cannot put these incentives forward and not have anybody participate. The safe parking was for people to say, I want to identify safe parking on my land, and we will help you with the streamlining of the permit. So actions are there. We did those things. Nobody participated. It takes a community, it takes a village, it takes everyone talking to, informing, coming to the table. You can't solve housing issues and homeless issues without community participation. You can't say to the supervisor, fix it, and not participate. It won't work.
Thank you.
Brian Roberts, 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. What I was trying to say earlier is 300 pounds on Kim Kemp was reported down in Mendocino. It was a ticket and release. They didn't arrest the people. So if they're letting someone drive with 300 pounds and it's a ticket and release, why are we spending thousands upon thousands of dollars going after our neighbors? What we need to do is take that money, go after the hard drugs. Hard drugs cause problems. Homeless are usually hard drug users and not cannabis users. And that's one way to get rid of not get rid of the homeless, to help the homeless. And as far as housing goes, we just need to really be thinking out of the box and find a way how people could, maybe even not a safe park, but maybe just a place where they can drive in, park for the night, leave. And I don't know. There's some things about the safe park that the people didn't know about and it wasn't used. So somehow we need to have more community outreach just so people know about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Michelle Bushnell, we're going to go to you for this next question. Cannabis legalization approaches a decade. What do you think went well? What do you think went wrong? And are you involved with the cannabis industry, and how will that affect your role as a supervisor? I know that's a lot. 1 minute.
So cannabis legalization, someone else is talking, I'm sorry. What went wrong is the 1 acre cap for the state. Overproduction is what, without having federal legalization, overproducing, that means lower prices. What went right I think from the very beginning, Humboldt County really recognized legalization and wanted to work towards helping farmers achieve that. Granted, there has been issues with the 1.0 and 2.0, and you know, we need to fix those and work on those. That's what happens with brand new entities. But when you have overproduction, you had a promise of a 1 acre cap, you have hundreds of acres growing throughout California, and no way to federally get it out of the state. That creates a problem. Overproduction means reduction in price, and that's what we've seen. We've seen cannabis plummet over the you know, since.
Our apologies, Michelle Bushnell. Brian Roberts, same question. What went well, what went wrong with legalization, and are you involved in the cannabis industry, and how will that affect your role as supervisor? 1 minute.
Yes, I'm involved in the industry. What went bad was vertical monopolies to get retail stores in the major cities. As far as Humboldt County, we did phenomenal. I give John all the credit. He got us through. Most counties couldn't get cultivators through the CEQA. We did an EIR right in 2016, and that was amazing. What I have a problem with Humboldt County, though, is we failed to manage these permits. We fast-tracked new cultivation, and people who were pre-existing legacy farmers took 6 years to get through the system. Now, what is the problem with that? They weren't allowed to apply for Project Trellis. Only new cultivate. You had to be fully completed with your permit to get Project Trellis. So Humboldt County did great on a whole and horrible. So, you know, and we have vertical monopolies down south. We can't sell our product anywhere until national legalization comes. We really are just sitting on our hands waiting.
Thank you, Brian Roberts. Gina McClendon, with legalization, what went wrong, what went right, and are you involved with cannabis, and how will that impact your role if elected as supervisor?
So the great news here is I am not a cannabis farmer. I'm not a cannabis farmer. So that will not affect my role, other than I will be able to be free to have all discussions on anything related to the cannabis industry. I would never have to recuse myself when it comes to cannabis. I think that there was a lot of things that did go right and a lot of things that could be improved. It's always easy to point out the things that went wrong, but I will say that there was a lot of work to be done. You know, they were basically paving a new trail, and we have come this far. The good news, I think the hardest part is behind us. Unfortunately, I don't think we heard our residents enough and did anything to really listen and take action. And that is why we have Measure A on the ballot.
Okay, thank you, Gina McClendon. Michelle Bushnell, 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. And I'm not going to rebut anything, but I am going to continue with my conversation. So yes, I have a cultivation permit. It was something I was very transparent about during my time or my first election, which I didn't have a cultivation permit then. I was in the process. I transferred my LLC to my husband, and so that we could finish that process without a conflict. I currently do not participate in Measure S discussions per FPPC recommendations. If you pay attention, that is the only thing I don't participate in. And I have sought FPPC guidance throughout my time as a supervisor. I think because I am a cultivator, it gives me a unique perspective on the needs. I don't think that cultivation is going well for people. People are broke and suffering and really trying to have to pivot. Measure A, it's a big discussion. It's not why we have Measure A, because we didn't listen, but there.
Our apologies, Michelle Bushnell. Brian Roberts, 1 minute.
Thank you. Yes, so I've already contacted one of my lawyers, and what I would do for the 4 years if elected is I would shutter my farm so I have no conflict of interest whatsoever. The state of California is the first time this year in March, you're allowed to change your application timeline. You could set it up more in tune with cultivation, the yearly cycle. And 2, you're allowed to shutter your farm without anything. You still have to pay waste discharge. You still have to pay surety bond and a few other things, but you could basically remove yourself from the cannabis industry and still keep your permit. So I would do that for 4 years. So I would have no conflict conflict of interest so I could vote on Measure S, because I think that's the future of our county. Is, are we going to let these cultivators survive, or are we going to let them go under? And all of them are on the brink of going under.
Thank you, Brian Roberts. Gina McClendon, 1 minute.
Just going to bring up the fact that if you think that transferring your cannabis license to your husband's name makes it not a conflict of interest, I have concerns about that. And yes, I did mention that you are not allowed, according to FPPC, to partake in any discussions regarding Measure S taxes.
Thank you, Gina McClendon. We're going to start this next question with Brian Roberts. Brian Roberts, Humboldt County is home to over 11 federally recognized and unrecognized tribes. However, there is a lack of tribal representation in county government. How do you plan to engage with the Native community, respecting their sovereignty while ensuring their needs are met? And do you support the idea of a tribal oversight liaison? 1 minute.
Yes, I do support a tribal oversight liaison. There's nothing wrong with people having say in government and having a voice. I think the problem is not letting everyone have a say or a voice. If we exclude people, then who are we really representing? I respect the sovereignty of the tribes. I think they should be able to govern themselves. I was kind of concerned when cannabis legalized, and I remember hearing raids going on their properties, unless maybe they didn't approve it themselves. But as far as I was concerned, when I was a kid, all Indian reservations are sovereign nations within the United States. So how California, the federal government, has any say whatsoever is astonishing to me. So yeah, I would allow them. I would hope they would have representation. I hope they'd have a liaison to tell us what they believe in. They're citizens of the United States.
Sorry about that, Brian Roberts. That 1 minute flies by. We're going to switch this question over to Gina McClendon. Again, Humboldt County is home to over 11 federally recognized and unrecognized tribes. However, there is lack of tribal representation in county government. How do you plan to engage with the Native community, respecting their sovereignty while ensuring their needs are met? And do you support the idea of a tribal oversight liaison? 1 minute.
Thank you. Yes. As I've said many times before, I think that business is based on relationships. So you need to be out there and you need to be chatting with everybody, all the stakeholders of our community. We need to have a lens wide enough to look at everybody in our community when we are making decisions at the county level. And so, yes, I would absolutely support a tribal liaison if that's how they feel like their voice is going to be heard best, because we do need to make sure we are prioritizing hearing everyone's voice and then making decisions based on receiving everybody's input.
Thank you, Gina McClendon. And Supervisor Michelle Bushnell. Humboldt County is home to why over is hard today? I don't know. Over 11 federally recognized and unrecognized tribes. However, there is a lack of tribal representation in county government. How do you plan to engage with the Native community, respecting their sovereignty while ensuring their needs are met? And do you support the idea of a tribal oversight liaison? 1 minute.
Thanks for the question. So I'm on the just newly appointed to the government relations with the tribal entities, and this role is something I really wanted to understand, to really work with and listen to their voices to see how we can represent them. So we do have our first meeting in the 1st of February, next week, I guess. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing what their thoughts are, how they can represent within our county, how we can hear their voices, how we can represent them. My thoughts are always get do you want to have a liaison to advise us, to really recognize, their values? And so I'm looking I'm really excited about that work. And just like everybody, you have to listen and hear people. You have to listen to understand them and really take that value in. And I really, really respect that and look forward to the conversations with.
All right, we're going to go to 1 minute rebuttal. We have Brian Roberts.
Yeah, so if we look at the history of the United States, they were the first citizens in our nation. So how could you not want to listen to them and let them input what they want to say? My favorite book I bought when I first moved up to Humboldt was 162, where is it? It's right behind me. It's 162 tribes. It basically talks about the interrelationship between the first settlers in Humboldt County and the tribes. They're part of our history. They have everything. In the diverse world we live in today, why wouldn't we want them to be a part of it? Simple as that. It's not even a question. It's not even questionable.
Thank you, Brian Roberts. And Gina McClendon, 1 minute.
Yes, I would support a liaison. I would support listening. I would create relationships there, go out, meet them, try to understand their culture. Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. And Michelle Bushnell, 1 minute.
Thank you. I'm going to go back a little bit. So when I said that I transferred my husband's LLC or my LLC to his name, when I applied for a cannabis permit, he wasn't listed on it. Because we were in the process, I didn't want to represent myself at the county permitting process once I got elected. I don't hide that I am involved or have a cannabis permit. My name is still on that LLC. What I transferred it for, so there would be transparency that I wasn't involved in the permitting process, which is where I felt the conflict was, and where the FPPC said, absolutely, you cannot be involved in the permitting process or speak for myself, which I would never do. So I didn't transfer the permit to my husband. We are partners in everything we do, but I protected that by having him be the spokesperson for the cultivation permit. And I've been transparent from day one about everything that my business, I'm wide open.
Our apologies, Michelle Bushnell. We're going to move on to the next question. Gina McClendon, we start with you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate Humboldt County's emergency response? And what would you like to see improved? 1 minute on the clock.
Wow, that's a really interesting question. I'm hoping that I'm answering it right. Emergency response in general to a specific, I'm not sure. What I will say is this. Our OES team is amazing, from the things that I've seen in our communities, from the work that they do, the training they do, the outreach that they do. Amazing. We have great people. However, I think the most important thing that I can, I guess, give a perspective for this question is that the time to prepare for an emergency is before it happens. So when these things do happen, we are prepared to the best of our ability. I always think it's important to be on site and see firsthand what people need and give them support accordingly.
Thank you, Gina McClendon. Same question goes to you, Michelle Bushnell. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate Humboldt County's emergency response, and what would you like to see improved?
So I would rate the emergency response at 10. I came in and didn't have an emergency until the earthquakes and the snowstorms came. The reaction from OES and the Sheriff's Department is amazing. What people really need during an emergency is guidance. It is very difficult to know how to navigate when you cannot go back in your house, when you cannot feed your animals because of snow. They want guidance. Now, Humboldt County, we need help federally and from the state. We don't always qualify for FEMA, and it becomes a problem. We need help from the states and the feds to accomplish recovery, and that's what's really important. And people need guidance during natural disasters, sorry. And really, I really liked being hands-on and doing that. When the earthquakes happened, I was there for 20 days, every single day in both.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell. Brian Roberts, same question on a scale of 1 to 10. How would you rate the county's emergency response, and what would you like to see improved?
First, I give our EOS emergency response, I'd give them a 10 plus. In Humboldt County, we are born survivalists. That's what I love about this county. If there's a fire, ranchers go up and cut a fire line. When the National Forest was burning for months one summer, right as it got over the ridge on the Blocksburg, all the ranchers got up and did their own fire line. So they're not paid for it. These are people. So all of our emergency responders they're fearless, they're survivalists. What I would like to see change or anything is absolutely nothing. But like Gina said, preparedness is the most important when it comes to disasters. You don't know what disaster is going to hit, but you need to be prepared, and you have to have the right personnel. Am I worried about our personnel in Humboldt County? No, not at all. As long as they have money.
Thank you, Brian Roberts. Gina McClendon, 1 minute rebuttal.
I think one other important point just to bring up is that after any emergency, I think there's always a learning curve where you can take that disaster and then debrief when it's time and find out what could be improved, what did we do great, what could have been done better. I think that it is always important in any emergency response when we are given dollars to help local residents that we try as much as possible to keep those dollars local and the decisions made with those dollars local, because the more roadblocks we put in the way for people to actually get those dollars, the less people we're helping. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michelle Bushnell, 1 minute.
No rebuttal, but to continue on. So being prepared before an emergency is critical. We have the tsunami sirens that go off. We have the earthquake drills that happen. Also, the Sheriff's Department has the alert that you can sign up on your phone. If you haven't done that, Humboldt County Prepared Alertness, and I don't quote me on that, but look it up. Sign up for that. You get a warning before an earthquake. It's not much, but you get some warning. You also get a warning on when a tsunami a test is going to happen, so that you know that's not real. Listening to KMUD, so important. Those things connect people in disasters. We need help federally to get FEMA moving. Those dollars did not come into Humboldt County because we did not qualify. Our county could probably fall off the earth and we would never qualify. We need to change that. That's in Sacramento and beyond. It's super important. I've been advocating for it since day one. Need bigger help.
Brian Roberts, 1 minute.
Quickly, within 72 hours, I trust every neighbor I have. We're all survivalists. After the 72 hours, it becomes the job of the supervisors and those in charge, exactly what Michelle said. Find out where the money is. How do we get a grant writer to get us FEMA? How do we do all these things? As a supervisor, after the initial disaster, the next 72 hours is your job to get on it, and find out where the money is, where the help is, what can the state do, what can the federal agencies do. And that's what you do in a disaster. But the first 72 hours, I know all of us will survive with our neighbors. We have so many volunteer firemen that are all our neighbors who are business owners. So we're survivalists. I don't worry about the first 72 hours. I worry about the last after the first 72 hours. That's what we need to be prepared for.
Okay. Thank you, Brian Roberts.
All right. This is going to be challenging. We have a 3-parter here because we're running out of time. So your thoughts on these 3 topics, starting with Supervisor Michelle Bushnell. Our listeners would like to know about your beliefs in the Humboldt County Climate Action Plan, what you like, what you don't like, and what you believe needs accelerated, your thoughts on the dam removal on the Eel River dams, and what you would be doing to engage the Sonoma County water users to ensure that your district water needs are met. And additionally, the industrial projects slated for the Humboldt Bay Peninsula. How do you plan to attract essential jobs while preserving the county's rural atmosphere? And that's a lot. So once again, thoughts on the climate action plan for the county, for the Eel River dams coming out and the negotiations with Sonoma County Water, and the industrial projects slated for the Humboldt Bay Peninsula.
Thank you. So the climate action plan, we need a qualified cap. We missed that bar when we were working on it before, and we're working on a qualified cap right now. We need to recognize that the Humboldt County is not the same as LA or Sacramento and those areas where the state mandates a cap. And in that cap, they don't recognize rural. We almost meet zero emissions if we were to take in our carbon credits. And we need to recognize that. We don't need to bring a cap into Humboldt County that restricts people, but we do need to recognize the environmental benefits of it and enact that. Dam removal on the Eel River, what I want to see from that, and that's happening, and it's happening with PG&E now, and the FERC report is going to be coming out. I want recovery for the Eel River downstream. Just releasing water is not going to fix the Eel River. There's a lot of other issues. So I want them to recognize that, and I'm going to on my rebuttal.
Thank you, Michelle. And Brian Roberts, same question.
Okay, that's a lot to handle in 1 minute. State mandate zero emission, Humboldt County Action Climate Plan. These are all major issues. I'm a huge environmentalist. Eel River dam removal. I'm all for it, but like she said, you need to make sure the project's done from start to finish, from where the dam is to the ocean. Humboldt Bay, we just got a huge amount of money to upgrade Humboldt Bay. That could help with tourism, but here's the thing. Let's see it happen. I think there was 426 million, and I think we have to find matching funds. So if we can find matching funds, Humboldt Bay is going to be redone, and there's going to be tons of work there. It'll be temporary for 3 to 4 years. You're going to have a lot of need for housing. It could help the economy huge. Long term, I can't give you I don't know what it'll be long term, but hopefully it's not an environmental disaster. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian Roberts. And Gina McClendon, your thoughts on those 3 topics?
Thank you. I think that I'm just going to go with a couple big blanket statements that I hope satisfy the people that are proposing these questions. For the climate action plan, I think that we really need to take a good look at making sure that we are really considering large projects that have a big benefit. I hope that we do not end up in a place where we are putting so many rules and regulations on our individual families and residents to try to meet these requirements. I hope that we're taking a look at these big projects that could give us a lot of bang for our buck. I'm going to skip all the way to the last part of it about the improvement and how are we going to create jobs and create a workforce. We have so many assets around us, and I will finish in my rebuttal.
Thank you, Gina. And Michelle, 1 more minute.
Thank you. So on the harbor, developing the harbor, yes, we just got a lot of federal money. Congressman Huffman just delivered that 2 days ago. I also want, while developing a deep water port, we need to recognize that it can't be at the cost of other entities. We have a lot of activities in the Bay, and so I want to make sure that we really address the oysters, the seaweed, all of that's been there, but also recognizing that not only creating a deep water port, it is for wind, but what it could do for Humboldt County is just astronomical. Recognizing that and really bringing those things in with economic development is key. Also, with the climate action plan, we have state mandates we have to meet. Having to work around those state mandates are hard when it's not considered for rural areas. Those mandates are made for urban areas. And so really advocating at a state and federal level is so important.
Thank you, Michelle. And Brian Roberts, 1 minute. Oh, you're still muted, Brian.
Sorry about that. Yeah, and did I hear there was talk about water as well? It's water. We had I don't think water is the main issue for Humboldt County as far as drinking water. I believe the lumber mill used to, I think it was several million gallons of water. And I think the waste discharge on the aqua farm is going to be about 10 million gallons per day, which is probably 20 times more than all cannabis in a decade, but that's irrelevant. So when it comes to our water, I think we're really good in Humboldt County. And yeah, the wind project's great. The aqua farm, I'm not 100% positive on it, but it's a huge economic project, and I just hope it doesn't turn out to be a disaster.
Thank you, Brian. And Gina McClendon, 1 minute.
I'll just finish my thought on the workforce for these huge projects. We have such assets in our community with the College of the Redwoods and Cal Poly as partners that are there established. They have infrastructure to help train our workforce, make sure we are getting the right people into our workforce ready and able to work on these huge projects that are coming our way. Back to the environmental side of things, I just believe that any type of new projects that are coming our way, these large projects, we need to make sure that we are taking stakeholder input and we are using the best practices and sustainable practices so we can protect our environment while making sure we have a viable economy today and for future generations to come. So I think we just all need to start paddling in the same direction when it comes to these projects.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you. And with 10 minutes left on the clock, I want to make sure that each candidate gets their 3 minutes to share their closing remarks as to why District 2 voters should write your name in on March 5th. In the rotation, Brian Roberts, you are up with 3 minutes on the clock. And to all candidates, please be sure to include where voters can go to learn more about your campaigns. And with that, Brian Roberts, 3 minutes. You're muted, Brian. There you go.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'd be a wonderful candidate to represent District 2 in Southern Humboldt. I have long history here. I went camping here when I think I was 6 years old at Richardson Grove. We used to do a up the coast trip for 2 weeks with my school from Northern California, but that's irrelevant. But I have lots of friends that are business owners in Humboldt County. I've met them 15, 20 years ago when I had my shops in Amsterdam and Los Angeles. I did events that attracted lots of businesses from Humboldt County, and I'm still friends with some of these people today. So I have connections here in Humboldt. I am not born and raised here. I will not play any favoritisms whatsoever on anybody because I don't know anyone that well enough. I play favoritisms towards our county. Our county needs to get off of the bottom 10 of the poorest in the state, and we need to get up in the middle of the road. We've got great resources. We have some of the best natural environment. Our nature here is insane. We've got rivers, we've got lakes, we've got mountains, we've got beaches. We have so much stuff to do outside that we need to protect that more than anything. We need to grow our economy. We need to get people working again. I see so many things about people that make pies. They make all these little trinket things, but they have no avenue to sell them. So we need more craft fairs. But this is not a supervisor. All you could do is help and support the people so they could do their own stuff. Government isn't supposed to burden people. When you live a life, you're not even supposed to recognize government. Government isn't supposed to be over your head, looking down at everything you do. We're supposed to be in the back way. I was going to go to law school after college, but I decided that I prefer working for myself. I've always worked for myself. I've had lots of employees. I've had an international business in America and Holland. And I think I could do a really good job for our county. I will not have any biasness towards one group of people or another. I want everybody to succeed. And that's the bottom line. I once did a t-shirt for UC Santa Barbara. It was a Halloween t-shirt. And one year I went out there and I had 3 shirts and there was like 9 other people next to me. And we were all doing t-shirts. And I was like, wow, this is going to be really hard to sell all my t-shirts. I sold every one that year. The following year, I did twice as many t-shirts. And I was like, this is going to be great. I'm going to make all this money. And there's no competition. It was me and 2 other people. Everyone dropped out and I couldn't sell any shirts that year. So to create an industry, you have to have lots of people participate. And that's the main thing. So as far as Measure A, we were going to put a cap on permits. That
10
limits
seconds,
how many
Brian.
people. That limits the people. So I'm here to get everyone working and hopefully we all do good. Go Humboldt.
Thank you, Brian Roberts. And Gina McClendon, we'll put 3 minutes on the clock for you to make your final case for the evening as to why 2nd District voters should write Gina McClendon on March 5th.
Thank you. I just want to say really quickly, thank you for the opportunity for this forum. And I know some people are taking the time to watch it tonight after work, and I appreciate that. Some people will watch it later. You have before you 3 candidates that are all vying for this position. Well, I appreciate that Supervisor Bushnell has been doing the job for 3 years, and I want to thank her for her service. I know that it's a tough job, and I know that a lot of times it's a thankless job. So I think that it wouldn't be fair if I did not acknowledge that. But the bottom line is the job is up for renewal, and we're all vying for this same position. So I think that I have to just end my 2 minutes by saying these are the ways that I differentiate myself from the incumbent. I definitely have a different philosophy and approach to doing things and getting things done. I do things a different way. Number 2, I am not a cannabis farmer, so I don't have a conflict. And number 3, I come from a very different background with a different set of tools in my tool belt. And so as voters are really trying to figure out, do we want 4 more years of what we have, or do we want to try somebody new? I just want to leave you with a few things to remember, because for me, actions always speak louder than words. So I would like to remind the voters of the Rolling Meadows project, when 1,700 members of the community asked the incumbent to vote no, and she voted yes. Let's remember the Humboldt County Visitors Bureau, when we could have taken action to get rid of something that wasn't working, and no action was taken. I believe it's fair to say that a lack of hearing people and taking action is what created Measure A. So now we are rolling the dice with this ballot measure, which I will be voting no on the ballot with the cannabis industry. I also would like to remind you that our current supervisor does need to recuse herself from any Measure S tax discussion in the future, which is basically going to leave our District 2 cannabis farmers with no representation. I will remind everyone of the way that we treat people matters. Culture matters. Leading organizations and leading people matters. So I will leave you with this. If you are looking for a candidate with positive energy, integrity, and a civilized leadership style, there is only one choice. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina McClendon. And tonight, we'll leave our listeners with Supervisor Michelle Bushnell, incumbent, seeking a 2nd term in office here in Humboldt County. Michelle, if you want to spend the next 3 minutes explaining to voters why you believe you are the best choice for the next 4 years.
Thanks. When I got this position, I was as green as they get, and I did it because I care about my community, I care about my district, and I care about Humboldt County. I'm a 4th generation Southern Humboldt resident. My grandparents are buried here. They raised me. They're buried on our family ranch. I'll be buried there. I'm here for the long term. And while you can point out 5 things that you think I could have done better, there are 500 things that I've done great. And I listen to people. I try to guide people. I try to help with solutions. I I love Humboldt County. I want it to thrive. I grew up when it was timber and ranching. I went through the cultivation era when it was not, you didn't talk about it. I went through the legalization of cultivation. I've seen Garberville be at its best and at its worst. And I'm here for the good, and helping that and guiding that is really what I'm about. You as a supervisor has there's lots of things you can do, and there's lots of things you cannot do. You really are dependent on 4 other supervisors that you work with, and building that relationship with other supervisors so that you can move things forward in a positive way. I do that. I really work hard at getting along with my fellow supervisors, bringing my district's concerns to the board, and expressing, while it might not be your way, it might be District 2 way, and please allow for that and allow that our districts are different, moving legislative forward so that we can move the county forward. I work really hard on the ground. I'm always there. I try to really be involved, be positive, find those solutions, give people ideas, listen to them, answer the phone, answer the email. It's a tireless job. I really enjoyed today getting to hear what Gina and Brian have had to say and getting to know them well. I thank KMUD so much for the opportunity. And I also thank the listeners that called in and expressed their concerns and asked us those questions and really pointed out what's really important to people. Measure S, it really is a voter initiative thing. The Board of Supervisors can do a little bit with it, but it needs to go back to the voters. When it goes back to the voters, I can vote and I will vote. And it can happen one time at the Board of Supervisors. It was voted in by the voters and it will go back to the voters eventually. And, you know, I think it's really important to recognize that conflict and to just be upfront with it, which I did.
10 seconds.
I would never want to jeopardize the people in the district. So thank you for being, allowing me to be your supervisor. I'm asking for you.
Thank you, Michelle Bushnell, and thank you so much to all of our participants tonight. It's not easy to sit here for 2 hours and be put on the spot. So thank you so much, Brian Roberts. Thank you, Gina McClendon, and thank you, Michelle Bushnell. I hope all of our listeners can give a big virtual round of applause. You've had it tuned to KMUD News' live edition of Humboldt County 2nd Supervisorial District Candidate Forum. I want to give a big special to my co-host, Lisa Music, our engineer, Patricia Tinkler. I've been your host, Lauren Schmidt, and if you appreciate what we do here at KMUD, please go to kmud.org and make a donation or become a member. Thank you all so much. Tune in tomorrow night for the 3rd District Forum. Thank you.
Go KMUD.
It is.